All right.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone watching this Explearning Conversation, which is live between me and Greg.
Yes, indeed.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, as
Hanging
well
in
as one
there?
can be.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot on our plate right now, and we'll be moving, so we're getting a lot of our ducks in a row, and everything like dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So, we'll be releasing content on a regular schedule, but
Doing our best.
sometimes we just have to take a breather
Yeah.
and say stuff like this. So hopefully you don't mind. Transparency, right? A great skill in communication. So in addition to transparency, another great skill in communication is mirroring, right?
Mirroring.
Yeah. And it's basically as it sounds, right? So Greg is basically doing what I'm doing. You know that game where you kind of, when you're a child, you play it, at least in the US, like definitely we've done this before. When you're trying to annoy someone, you do the miming, you do what they do.
Yeah. What's it called? It's like the copycat game or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't know if there's a name for it, but maybe
there is.
Oh.
There's definitely, yeah.
Okay. So it's basically like if you're annoyed or someone's annoying you, you like start copying them.
Mm-hmm.
So
why are you doing that?
why are you doing that?
Are you doing what I'm doing?
Are you doing what I'm doing? So, okay. Anyway, it's very infantile, but that's a type of mirroring that actually gets under people's skin. But in a positive sense, mirroring is supposed to promote, and in fact it does. It increases the bond between you and the other person. So we're looking mostly at dyadic interactions, meaning between two people. Because when you're in a group setting, it's a little bit, you can mirror, but who are you going to mirror? Are you going to single someone out and mirror them? Are you going to single, you know what I mean? It's going to be a little bit more challenging. So when we talk about mirroring, it's usually in the context of a dyadic interaction, meaning a conversation.
I have something to add to the group one. We can talk about it later.
Yeah, no, let's talk about that. So dyadic meaning between two people. Yeah, What were you going to say?
I was just going to say.
Let's talk about it now.
I have some idea. Okay. Well, no, but let's start with the
setting it up.
Yeah, just getting the concept.
Okay, I just
of it
don't
down.
want you to forget it.
I won't.
So don't forget it.
I won't.
Okay.
You guys remind us.
Yeah. So if you have any questions about this, anything that pops up, just send it over in the chat, in the margin, and we'll get to it. So the lesson that we put out earlier this week was about interactional synchrony and reciprocity. And you may have heard of this before, but I'm guessing probably not because it's one of those.
I had not.
Yeah, it's pretty specific, right? And if you recall, if you watched the lesson, which we hope you did, it's really about that time when you're a neonate, right? Even a 3-day-old, and you're a newborn, and you are basically the way you interact with your primary caregiver. In many people's cases, it's their mother. But in some cases it's not, right? It's the primary caregiver, let's just call it. That interaction, that bonding that happens, it sets the stage for so many important social interactions that develop later in life and increasing and helping us become attuned to things like empathy and mirroring, right? So it's a type of mirroring, and it promotes bonding and attachment, right? So it really sets the stage for what we know as mirroring later in life. And this is something that we actually don't really pay attention to when we have really good rapport with someone. So if you really click instantly with somebody, and we have a few videos on rapport, so definitely check that out if that's something that you want to know more about. We have content on it. If I immediately click with Greg, which we did, we were fast friends, you just start to kind of like imitate their behavior in the most casual sense. So if their arms are starting to like cross like this, you'll start to get the feeling of wanting to do this. And you might catch yourself mid like gesture and be like, oh, I'm copying that person. Or if they yawn, right? Yawning is extremely contagious. Even hearing the sound of someone yawning will get you to yawn. Try it out sometime.
One of the things that I notice sometimes is if I'm speaking to someone with an accent, this is in English, I'll start to adopt their accent. So if I'm speaking to someone with a British accent, I start to use some British phrases and pronunciation.
Yeah.
And the same for like a Southern accent. I might start using a Southern accent for that. It's just it sort of happens naturally.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it.
Right.
But it helps me, even though I don't know if it's helping me actually develop a tighter connection with them. But what I do know is it helps me connect with them psychologically.
Yeah.
Right. When I start speaking the way they do, it helps me a little bit get in their shoes and talk with a little more empathy and understanding.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that could certainly be viewed as like a type of mirroring. But it's a lot to do with also like nonverbals. And even, syncing up to match their tonality, their inflection patterns, and also the pacing, right? So I'm someone who talks pretty fast. And when I'm with people who talk even faster than I, like it's, a lot of fun. So my point here is that with people that you don't have natural rapport, this is when you need to start tapping into your mirroring capabilities, right? And actually make a conscious effort to do something about it. If you want to become closer to them, if you want to become better friends with them, better colleagues, make a good impression, right? Make that indelible mark on them.
Or just communicate more effectively, right?
Exactly.
Communicate with more clarity.
Yeah. So, things like really like looking at how they sit in their chair, right? And if they're sitting up like this, then you do that too. If they have their like hands on the table, do that too. You don't have to copy their exact gesture, right? But do it in a way that's, one, not that obvious, right? We're aiming for subtlety here. And two, it's somewhere close to what they're doing, right? Somewhat close. So if they're using their hands quite a bit, then you start to sort of gesture a little bit too. You don't have to go crazy with it. But again, if you do it subtly, they're not going to pick up on it like you're playing Simon Says with them.
Another example is when you're at like a business lunch or something.
Yeah.
You sort of mirror what they order, right?
Oh, that's a really good one.
Yeah. So, if they're getting a light salad,
yeah,
you don't necessarily want to get the porterhouse steak.
Right.
It creates this sort of incongruency that can be distracting.
Yeah.
So I typically wait for the other person to order first.
Yeah.
And then get something sort of roughly in that category.
Right. So if they're having like a pasta or an antipasta or something, you would order the same.
Yeah, something that's
similar.
Sort of thematically similar.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, it somehow creates this alignment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it shows the shared interests, shared values.
Yeah.
That smooths the way for a better conversation about whatever you're meeting about.
Right. In movies, sometimes you'll see those like business luncheon settings type things, and they'll say, I'll have what he's having, or I'll have what she's having, and sometimes like they'll get like a plate of like something that they don't like, or maybe something that they've never tried before.
Yeah, like, oh boy.
Yeah, like, oh, actually, what is this that we're having?
Yeah.
It's like,
actually,
okay.
a hilarious example of that is my brother does a lot of client meetings for work, and one of his clients in the past would always order this huge plate of sushi, like a sushi for two. My brother did not like sushi, but every time they met, they'd always get this plate of sushi, and he'd just, do his best to
Power
have some
through.
of the sushi.
Wash it down.
Yeah, exactly. But that by creating this sort of shared something that some point of commonality.
Yeah.
It does establish
rapport.
A bond, rapport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. It's synchronous, right? That's the bottom line. That's like what we want to underscore, right? So mirroring, right? Doing very similar, you can even get down to like micro expressions. The person themselves showing the micro expression, expressing that, the flash of that emotion in a fraction of a second might not pick up on themselves doing it, but them seeing it in you might, resonate with them. And because they're feeling, for example, frustration. And if you show frustration on your face, you're commiserating, right? It's like a way of,
I think of it almost as a dance, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's a good
communication
analogy.
itself is almost a dance, right?
Yeah.
You're going back and forth, you're talking, then your conversation partner's talking, you go back and forth. But there is also, when you're dancing, you're basically synchronizing your movements.
Right.
And so you do that with conversation, and you can also do that with your body.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned early on how this comes from being a baby, right?
Yeah.
We start to mirror it as baby. I think it also just comes from being human.
Yep.
Right? Long ago, when we're dancing around a fire together, we're all sort of in this synchrony. We're all moving as one unit. There's I think this idea of mirroring and sort of replicating the other person's behavior is deeply rooted in our sense of tribe and belonging.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's a really good point. I love that connection that you drew just there, because it just reminds us that we do need social connections to thrive, right? I mean, how happy is a misanthropic person? Not that happy. Not if they can have just like a few friends that they can hang out with and
not if Jane Austen's to be believed.
Yeah. Why? Which one are you thinking of for Jane Austen?
She just has a lot of very misanthropic characters, and they always tend to be cranky and a bit difficult to communicate with.
I'm trying to think. Can you just name one so I can?
There's a few.
Okay. Well, we'll go over it next time. I love Jane Austen, so I'm trying to think who's that.
I mean, Catherine de Bourgh. Right?
Okay, perfect. That's
Catherine de Bourgh
from
Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
Like she's a. Or no, that's Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah,
Sense and Sensibility, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Or the friar.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, there's just some kooks.
Yeah. So again,
and they tend to be kooky because they're not in synchrony with the people around them.
Right. It kind of is like, there's that whole thing about, yes, it's good to stand out, be authentic, but at the same time, you want to kind of be in unison with other people, right? You want to be in harmony, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, which is how do you balance being in synchrony with someone without being excessively, without suppressing your authenticity, right? And your individual identity.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good, maybe it's a good topic for another time. If that's something that you're interested in, comment below. But yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely a balance, and it's really about expressing yourself authentically, but also like respecting the way the other person communicates. And alongside mirroring, and I think we'll end with this. Before that, though, I do want to hear your point about group.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because we started to touch on it, actually.
Oh, cool.
But what I was thinking with groups is that...
So mirroring in groups.
Groups. There are aspects that you can mirror in a group setting, right? For example, if you see that everyone's sort of casual and relaxed, then you maybe don't want to use stiff formal language.
Right, or pay attention to your language register.
Right. And likewise, if it's a very sort of formal setting and you see people, that clearly propriety is a crucial part of their behavioral norms, and you can sort of adopt that.
Yeah.
You basically read the room and try and match the context, be appropriate. Is this a situation where you should be loud and body, or soft and reserved? Right? So there are cultural norms and just behavioral norms that you can sort of read in a group setting that you can mirror yourself to establish rapport with that group.
Yeah, I love that. So that's perfect. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that. So try it out. Compare how you mirror in a dyadic, right, two-person interaction, and in more of like a group setting, even with like 4 people, let's say. And, I'd be curious, you could even do a little experimenting with, in real life versus online. How do you mirror in like a Zoom call in a virtual setting? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
What a great prompt.
I know, it's a good one. But I didn't say the last thing that I was going to say, which is the other form of mirroring is paying attention to communication styles. So sensory preferences, check out that video about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic communication sensory preferences. Remember, that was a mouthful, if you recall. Because that's another form of mirroring, right?
Great.
So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty comprehensive, but there's still a lot that we can talk about always. So now we're turning it over to you. We want you to do that challenge with the in real life and the virtual setting of figuring out, how can you do mirroring. Let us know how that goes and other strategies that you feel like you'd like to share with this amazing community. So I think that's a wrap.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank
and we
you.
look forward to hearing from you.
That's right.
And we'll see you
happy Explearning
later. Not so much synchrony there.
Bye, everyone. There we have it with the wave.